If you didn't know, the Bible contains a story about kings, war, rescue missions, and a mysterious eternal priest. Genesis 14 will surprise you. Several kings in the region go to war, and Lot is captured when Sodom is defeated. Abram gathers 318 trained men, launches a daring nighttime attack, and rescues Lot and the captives. On his return, Abram meets Melchizedek, king of Salem and priest of God Most High. Melchizedek blesses Abram, and Abram gives him a tenth of everything, an early picture of tithing. The king of Sodom offers Abram riches, but Abram refuses, saying he won't let anyone claim they made him wealthy. He honors God above all. Lesson from chapter 14. Real strength is trusting God as your source. Victory comes from God, and integrity protects your name. If you've ever waited for a promise so long that doubt started creeping in, Genesis 15 speaks directly to that feeling. God tells Abram not to fear. He himself is Abram's shield and reward. Abram asks how the promise of descendants will happen since he has no child. God takes Abram outside and shows him the stars. So shall your offspring be. Abram believes God, and his faith is counted as righteousness. Abram prepares animals, and at night, God passes between them in a burning torch and smoking firepot. This symbolizes God taking full responsibility for the promise. Lesson from chapter 15. Faith isn't believing because you see, it's believing until you see. When you try to help God fulfill his promise, things get messy fast. Sarai becomes impatient with waiting for a child. She gives Abram her servant Hagar to bear a child on her behalf. Hagar becomes pregnant, and tension erupts. Sarai mistreats her until Hagar flees into the wilderness. God finds Hagar, calls her by name, and tells her he has seen her pain. He instructs her to return and promises her a son, Ishmael, whose descendants will be countless. Hagar becomes the first person in the Bible to give God a name, El Roi, the God who sees me. Lesson from chapter 16. Impatience can birth complications, but God still sees and redeems broken situations. If you've ever wondered when Abram truly became Abraham, it happens right here. God appears and commands Abram to walk blamelessly. God changes his name to Abraham, meaning father of many nations, and changes Sarai's name to Sarah. God establishes circumcision as the physical sign of the covenant. Abraham laughs when told he and Sarah will have a child in their old age, but God insists the child of promise will be Isaac. Lesson: God doesn't just give promises, he transforms your identity to match them. This is the chapter where heavenly visitors walk into Abraham's tent and reveal the impossible. 3 mysterious men, one being the Lord himself, visit Abraham. The tone shifts when God tells Abraham about the coming judgment on Sodom. Abraham boldly intercedes, negotiating down from 50 righteous people to 10. God listens. Lesson: nothing is too hard for God, and intercession can shift outcomes. The 2 angels reach Sodom and meet Lot. Wicked men surround the house demanding access to the visitors. The angels strike them with blindness. At dawn, they tell Lot to flee because God is about to destroy the city. Lot hesitates, and the angels drag him out by the hand, God's mercy in action. Fire and brimstone rain down, destroying Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot's wife looks back and becomes a pillar of salt, symbolizing the danger of longing for what God delivered you from. Later, Lot's daughters, believing the world has ended, commit a desperate act to preserve their lineage. Lesson: escape when God says escape. Looking back can cost more than staying. Abimelech takes Sarah into his household, assuming she is unmarried, but God intervenes instantly. He comes to Abimelech in a dream and warns him, "You are a dead man because of the woman you have taken." Shocked, Abimelech pleads innocence. God acknowledges this, saying he kept Abimelech from sinning. Abimelech confronts Abraham, who reveals his fears. Abimelech returns Sarah and blesses Abraham with gifts. God then heals Abimelech's household. Lesson: God's faithfulness is stronger than your repeated failures. He protects his promise even when you struggle to trust him. If you've ever held on to a promise for so long you wondered if it would ever happen, this chapter will hit your spirit deeply. At long last, the promise comes alive. Sarah gives birth to Isaac. The laughter of disbelief becomes laughter of joy. But tensions rise when Ishmael mocks him. Sarah tells Abraham to send Hagar and Ishmael away. The situation breaks Abraham's heart, but God tells him not to worry. He will make Ishmael a great nation too. Hagar and Ishmael wander into the desert until their water runs out. As Hagar weeps, God hears the boy's cry. He opens Hagar's eyes to a well and promises Ishmael a great future. Meanwhile, Abimelech returns to make a covenant of peace with Abraham, acknowledging God is with him. Lesson: when God finally fulfills his word, he proves that he keeps his promises even when the journey feels impossible. If you've ever wondered what the ultimate test of faith looks like, this chapter shows a moment almost too intense to imagine. God calls Abraham, and he answers, "Here I am." Then comes the unthinkable command: take your son, your only son Isaac, the one you love, and offer him as a sacrifice. Abraham rises early, preparing for the journey without hesitation. Isaac carries the wood and asks, "Father, where is the lamb?" Abraham answers with one of the greatest faith declarations ever spoken: God himself will provide the lamb. When they reach the mountain, Abraham ties Isaac to the altar and raises the knife. At the final second, the angel of the Lord calls out, stopping him. God provides a ram caught in a thicket, just as Abraham prophesied. Lesson: the greatest tests reveal the depth of your trust and the greatness of God's provision. If you've ever lost someone you deeply love, this chapter reveals a quiet but powerful moment of grief, dignity, and legacy. Sarah dies at 127 years old, and Abraham mourns her deeply. After grieving, he seeks a burial place in Canaan, proving he still believes God's promise. He respectfully purchases the cave of Machpelah from the Hittites. This becomes the first piece of the promised land legally owned by his family, a physical symbol of hope planted in the midst of loss. Lesson: even in grief, God is still fulfilling his promises step by step. If you think the Bible doesn't have beautiful love stories, Genesis 24 will surprise you. It's a story of destiny guided by God's hand. Abraham sends his servant to find a wife for Isaac from his own family. The servant prays a specific prayer, that the right woman will be the one who not only gives him water but also offers to water his camels. Before he even finishes praying, Rebekah arrives and fulfills his prayer exactly. Her family agrees the match is from God. Rebekah willingly travels to Canaan. When she sees Isaac, she covers herself modestly. Isaac brings her into his mother Sarah's tent and loves her deeply, and she comforts him after his mother's death. Lesson: when God orchestrates a relationship, it flows with clarity, peace, and unmistakable grace. When one generation ends and another begins, this chapter shows how God's promise keeps moving even through complicated family dynamics. Abraham dies and is buried by Isaac and Ishmael, a rare moment of unity. The focus shifts to Isaac and Rebekah, who is unable to have children. Isaac prays for her, and God answers. She becomes pregnant with twins who struggle violently in her womb. God reveals that the older will serve the younger. Esau is born first, red and hairy, followed by Jacob. As they grow, Esau becomes a hunter while Jacob is quieter. One day, Esau returns exhausted and sells his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of stew. In a single moment, he trades spiritual privilege for physical appetite. Lesson: your destiny can be lost in a moment of carelessness if you value temporary cravings over eternal purpose. A famine strikes, and God tells Isaac to stay in Gerar, repeating the covenant given to Abraham. King Abimelech discovers the truth and protects them. Isaac then reaps a hundredfold harvest, but this prosperity stirs jealousy. Isaac leaves peacefully, reopening the wells his father dug. God appears again, and even Abimelech seeks peace, acknowledging God is with Isaac. Lesson: sometimes you must fight to reclaim what belongs to your spiritual inheritance, but perseverance leads to God-made expansion. This is one of the most emotional and dramatic chapters in Genesis, a story of deception, desperation, and destiny colliding. Isaac grows old and blind. He calls Esau to hunt so he can bless him. Rebekah overhears and remembers God's prophecy: the older will serve the younger. She instructs Jacob to disguise himself as Esau, covering his arms with goat skins. Jacob deceives his father and receives the blessing meant for Esau. Moments later, Esau returns and discovers the deception. His cry is heartbreaking. Isaac trembles, realizing the blessing is irreversible. Esau vows to kill Jacob. Rebekah urges Jacob to flee. The family fractures, and Jacob leaves with nothing but the blessing spoken over him. Jacob flees from Esau, broken and alone. As night falls, he uses a stone as a pillow and dreams of a stairway reaching from earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending. Above it stands the Lord, reaffirming the covenant given to his fathers: land, descendants, and divine protection. Jacob wakes in awe, realizing God was in that place even when he felt most lost. He sets up the stone as a pillar, names the place Bethel, house of God, and vows to serve the Lord who met him at his lowest point. Lesson: God meets you at rock bottom to remind you that you were chosen long before your mistakes. Jacob arrives at Laban's house and instantly falls in love with Rachel. He offers to work 7 years for her, and they pass like days. But on the wedding night, Laban switches daughters, giving Jacob Leah instead. Jacob is stunned and betrayed. Laban explains the younger cannot marry before the older, so Jacob agrees to work another 7 years for Rachel. He marries both sisters, creating intense rivalry. God sees that Leah is unloved and opens her womb. She bears sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah. Rachel remains barren, watching her sister receive the one thing she desires most. Lesson: when you manipulate others, expect manipulation in return. But even in dysfunction, God begins miracles that shape destiny. Rachel, desperate for children, gives Jacob her servant Bilhah. Leah, seeing this, gives her servant Zilpah, who bears Gad and Asher. Leah later bears Issachar and Zebulun, and her daughter Dinah. Finally, God remembers Rachel. He opens her womb, and she gives birth to Joseph, the future savior of nations. Meanwhile, Jacob proposes a deal involving speckled and spotted livestock, and God gives him supernatural wisdom to increase his flock. Jacob becomes wealthy while Laban's sons grow jealous. God tells Jacob it's time to return home. Lesson: even in chaos and conflict, God quietly builds his plan, multiplies his people, and prepares future deliverance. If you've ever tried to walk away from something God told you to leave, but the thing keeps chasing you, Jacob finally reaches the breaking point. But leaving isn't simple. Laban has grown wealthy because of Jacob's labor and refuses to let him go easily. Jacob secretly gathers his wives, children, flocks, and possessions and flees. Unbeknownst to Jacob, Rachel steals her father's household idols. Laban pursues them furiously for 7 days, overtaking them in the hill country of Gilead. But the night before the confrontation, God appears to Laban in a dream, telling him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, good or bad." Jacob, unaware of Rachel's theft, invites Laban to search everything. Rachel hides the idols by sitting on them and excuses herself by saying she cannot rise because of her period. Laban finds nothing. The tension erupts as Jacob unleashes years of frustration, reminding Laban how faithfully he worked while being cheated repeatedly. Surprisingly, the confrontation ends with a covenant, a boundary stone marking peace and separation between them. Laban kisses his grandchildren goodbye, returns home, and Jacob continues toward the land God promised him. Lesson: sometimes God won't let certain people harm you, not because they changed, but because he stepped in. And sometimes the greatest blessing is a boundary.